The galaxy trembled a moment the Dominion broadcast ignited every star system's emergency channels. A crimson sigil glowed across holographic skies as a cold, mechanical voice announced a decree no world had ever survived. Earth's senior diplomat had been marked for elimination, and 15,000 Dominion assassins were already en route to carry out the sentence. The declaration reverberated through asteroid colonies, trade stations, and frontier outposts with chilling clarity. No negotiation, no warning, no mercy. The entire galaxy understood what that meant. The Dominion never deployed such a force unless they intended absolute, unquestionable annihilation. Not even the most fortified empires had resisted the swarm for more than a day. Against Earth, still young, still underestimated, most species assumed the outcome was already carved in stone. But Earth did not scream. It did not panic. It did not beg for aid. Instead, in the silence following the broadcast, the world's leaders gathered behind sealed doors to decide the fate of their most cherished diplomat, a figure whose calm voice had de-escalated wars, united rival factions, and saved countless lives. Protecting him was not merely a strategic necessity. It was a moral one. Losing him would fracture humanity's fragile peace with the stars, extinguishing the hope he had spent his life cultivating. Yet with only hours before the assassins converged, there was no time to rally fleets or organize planetary defenses. The Dominion had chosen speed. Earth would have to answer with precision, and so it did, but not in a way anyone expected. The decision felt impossible, yet it was made in less than 5 minutes. Earth would not send armies. It would not dispatch battalions or hidden weapon platforms. It would send only 2 individuals, 2 shadows trained to walk where armies could not, 2 specialists who survived battles designed to break the world's strongest warriors. Their mere code names carried weight among the darkest corners of intelligence networks. Ghost and Archer. No titles, no ranks, no public records. Just 2 silhouettes whose existence alone caused unease among those who whispered about them. Ghost stepped from the transport hangar's fog like a figure carved from silence itself. His mask, stark white against the dim lights, bore a symbol shaped like a frozen scream. It was not meant to intimidate. It was meant to erase identity, to remind him that his life belonged wholly to the mission. His movements were effortless, precise, each step quiet even on metallic flooring. His reputation was built not on brutality but on flawless efficiency. He was the one sent when mistakes were unacceptable. Beneath his calm exterior burned a history he never spoke of, a colony destroyed by Dominion purgers, a brother he failed to save, a vow he forged from grief. Every mission since had been a promise carved into the marrow of his being. No one under his protection would fall as his family once did. That quiet fury was what made him unstoppable. Archer waited beside the shuttle's open ramp, his hood pulled low and his bow resting across his back like a relic from an ancient world. At first glance, there was nothing about him that suggested he belonged on a battlefield filled with plasma rifles and mechanized killers. But the moment he raised his gaze, the illusion shattered. His eyes held the sharp stillness of a hunter who had spent years studying the language of wind, distance, and death. His arrows were not primitive. Each carried energy cores that hummed with dormant force, capable of piercing reinforced alloys with surgical precision. He preferred subtlety, strikes delivered before the enemy realized the battle had begun. Years earlier, he had watched the Dominion erase an entire research team he called family. He had survived only by accident. The guilt hardened him into a weapon, but a weapon with purpose. Freedom, he believed, must be guarded by those willing to walk alone. Neither Ghost nor Archer greeted the other. They didn't need to. Their partnership had been forged in missions where conversation would have meant death. They understood each other through movement, through instinct, through the unspoken resolve that both carried like armor. When the mission briefing ended, the gravity of Earth's choice settled over them without ceremony. They were to escort the senior diplomat to the neutral world of Virulon, where a final negotiation might avert a galaxy-wide conflict. Dominion assassins had already fanned out across trade routes, frontier passes, and nebula corridors. They would strike without hesitation or remorse. The only path to survival lay in moving faster, hiding deeper, and fighting harder than the assassins believed possible. As the shuttle doors sealed, the engines warmed with a low, resonating hum. The diplomat, calm despite the circumstances, offered them a grateful nod. He knew the cost of their involvement, knew the darkness they carried, and yet trusted them without question. His life was not the only thing at stake. Humanity's future rested in the hands of two people the world barely acknowledged existed. The shuttle rose to the atmosphere, cutting a narrow path toward the stars where 15,000 killers were already hunting. Ghost rested his hand on his weapon. Archer tested the tension of his bowstring. Neither expressed fear. Neither needed to. They had been shaped for moments like this, moments when the impossible demanded obedience. Far below, Earth faded into a swirl of blue and white. Far ahead, danger thickened in the void like gathering smoke. The path to Virulon would be unforgiving, but they would walk it because no one else could. And though they traveled as only two, the Dominion would soon learn that two was more than enough. The shuttle glided through fractured remains of an abandoned trade route, its hull dimmed to avoid detection. Its engines whisper quiet against the silence of deep space. Inside, Ghost monitored every flicker of sensor data, watching the patterns with the patience of someone who understood how predators moved in the dark. Archer stood near the observation port, studying the shifting nebula clouds as if reading hidden messages etched into their drifting shapes. Their journey had barely begun, yet the weight of the Dominion's relentless pursuit pressed against the walls like an invisible tide. The assassins would not waste time. They would strike swiftly, and they would strike in overwhelming numbers. The first attack came sooner than expected. Without warning, the shuttle's hull trembled under a sudden kinetic barrage that shattered the quiet like a scream. Ghost instantly recognized the signature. Microdrones, thousands of them, swarming like metallic insects. Before the pilot could react, the drone split formation, peeling apart to reveal a trio of stealth skiffs armed with plasma lances. The ambush was coordinated, precise, and merciless. Dominion assassins never tested defenses. They crushed them, but Ghost and Archer were not ordinary defenders. Ghost moved first. He activated the ramp override before the pilot could protest, stepping into the decompression chamber with a fluid confidence that bordered on unnatural. The doors split open, revealing the cold void beyond, and Ghost launched himself outward, tethered by a thin cable that shimmered with protective energy. He drifted for only a heartbeat before stabilizing, bracing himself against the recoil of his rifle. In the silence of vacuum, bright arcs of ionized light erupted from the weapon, each shot calculated with mathematical perfection. Skiff armor crumpled, engines ruptured, and the first wave of assassins drifted helplessly into the abyss. Archer, inside the shuttle, had no intention of waiting passively. He accessed a maintenance hatch and stepped into a narrow outer walkway that circled the shuttle's midsection. The walkway had no proper cover, only skeletal metal beams lit by flickering emergency strips. Yet Archer moved with an almost meditative poise, drawing an arrow that pulsed with a soft green glow. He exhaled slowly, letting the chaos fade from his mind. When he released the arrow, it swept through vacuum in an elegant arc, guided by electromagnetic filaments woven into its core. It struck the lead skiff stabilizer, causing the vessel to spiral uncontrollably. Archer fired again, and another skiff ruptured in a quiet flash of violet fire. The drones, robbed of their command signals, scattered into aimless disarray. Within moments, the ambush dissolved into drifting debris. Ghost re-entered the shuttle with barely a word, his boots striking the metallic ramp with controlled force. The pilot stared in awe, struggling to comprehend how two people had dismantled an entire assassin squad in less than a minute. But neither Ghost nor Archer celebrated. They understood the grim truth. The Dominion would never send just one wave. The real trial was still ahead. As the shuttle pressed onward, the journey grew more perilous. They crossed the Duskwater Field, a region of shattered asteroids and silent mining platforms long abandoned after Dominion expansion. Each floating ruin carried the scars of forgotten wars, a haunting reminder how swiftly empires could crush resistance. In these derelict corridors of stone and metal, Ghost detected irregular energy pulses. Too faint for standard sensors, too consistent to be random. Archer confirmed it with narrow gaze. The Dominion had deployed concealment generators. Assassins were hiding among the asteroids, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The second attack erupted as the shuttle wove through a narrow canyon of tumbling rock. A barrage of plasma fire erupted from the shadows, scorching the hull and forcing the pilot into desperate evasive maneuvers. Archer seized a moment, leaping from the shuttle onto a drifting fragment of asteroid. Using its momentum, he vaulted toward the closest group of assassins who clung to the rocks like armored insects. His arrows glowed brighter in the shadowed canyon, each release cutting through the darkness with lethal grace. Ghost supported him from within the shuttle, sniping through fractured asteroid walls with pinpoint accuracy. Each shot found a target, each arrow extinguished a threat. Yet despite their efficiency, the assassins kept coming, wave after wave, drawn by the promise of Dominion glory. The battles wore on, each more violent than the last. Ghost's armor bore scorch marks, and Archer's movements grew heavier, though still precise. Their injuries accumulated, small cuts and bruises deepening with each harrowing encounter. Yet their resolve never wavered. Every clash reminded them why they fought. Earth's survival, the Diplomat's safety, the weight of memories that drove them beyond their own limits. The Dominion expected humans to break, but Ghost and Archer refused to bend. Hours later, as the shuttle approached the final hyperspace corridor leading toward Virulon, Ghost sensed an unsettling stillness across the sensors. It was too quiet, too perfect. The absence of hostility felt more sinister than any ambush. Archer stepped beside him, reading the tension etched across Ghost's mask. Something was coming, something larger than anything they had faced so far. As the stars elongated in preparation for the jump, a colossal energy signature flared into existence behind them. Dominion forces, concentrated into a single massive formation, had finally cornered their prey. The next attack would not be subtle. It would be absolute. The shuttle trembled under the gravimetric distortions of approaching war skiffs. Ghost tightened his grip on his weapon. Archer reached for an arrow with trembling fingers. They had survived every trap so far, but the Dominion was done testing them. The final gauntlet had begun. Ghost felt the vibration of the final blast ripple through the obsidian ridge, a low tremor that echoed through his armor and rattled the air like a dying heartbeat. The mountain pass behind him was collapsing, the entrances sealed, the assassins trapped inside. Yet he knew the battle was not over. They had angered a machine designed to exterminate civilizations. He could almost feel its focus narrowing, like a lens sharpening on a single speck of dust. And that dust was Earth's senior diplomat, an old man whose only weapon was words, and the last remaining shield between two civilizations on the edge of catastrophic war. Archer stepped up beside him, his breath sharp and shallow, a streak of soot running beneath one eye. He looked nothing like the calm sharpshooter who once guided entire battalions through hopeless missions. Now he resembled a man stripped down to core, a soldier fighting not for duty, but for one fragile human who believed peace was still possible. Ghost noticed Archer's hands trembling, though he pretended they weren't. Exhaustion was setting in, and it deepened the lines across his face. But the flame in his eyes burned bright, almost reckless. "We bought time," Archer said, steadying his rifle. "Not much." Ghost scanned the horizon, a field of metallic fog, drifting across the plateau like a silent tide. Enough for the Diplomat to reach extraction. Unless the hive recalibrates faster than we expect. It always recalibrates faster than we expect. Archer smirked bitterly and adjusted the dial on his visor, trying to pierce the fog. Neither man said what they both understood too well. The hive mind had lost 15,000 assassins. That failure would provoke a response vast enough to flatten continents. Ghost's throat tightened, not with fear, but with the acute awareness that everything they had done, every explosion, every bullet fired, every risk taken, was suddenly meaningless unless they ensured one frail Diplomat escaped alive. Down the ridge, a faint glow flickered. At first it looked like distant lightning, but then its rhythm sharpened. Precise, mechanical, deliberate. Ghost recognized it instantly. Reinforcements. Not assassins. Hunters. Archer cursed under his breath. Hunters were not designed to infiltrate or assassinate. They were built to erase everything in front of them. Terrain, structures, organisms, atmospheres. A single unit could tear through a battalion. A cluster could shred a city. And the fog meant only one thing. They were scanning. The Diplomat's escape craft was minutes away, too far to reach without crossing the open plateau. Archer knew it. Ghost knew it. And yet neither hesitated. "We move," Ghost said, pushing forward. Archer followed without question. This was their language. Few words, absolute trust. They dashed into the thinning mist, their boots pounding over fractured stone as bursts of shifting light streaked across the horizon. Each pulse felt like a cold breath on the back of their necks. Ghost's HUD flickered as electromagnetic waves battered his suit. He forced it to stabilize, his jaw clenched. The first hunter descended like a shard of night breaking through the sky. It slammed into the plateau, its silhouette tall and skeletal with glowing conduits running through its limbs. The ground groaned beneath its weight. Archer aimed instantly and fired, a plasma round erupting from his rifle. It hit the hunter's head, exploding into a spray of white-hot sparks. The machine barely flinched. "Not enough," Archer muttered. "Hit the core," Ghost instructed. Another hunter emerged from the fog. Then another. 3, 5, 7. The machines aligned with frightening precision, each turning its faceless helm toward the two human shadows, sprinting across the plateau. Ghost grabbed Archer's arm and yanked him behind a crumbling rock spine just as a beam of violet energy tore past, vaporizing everything in its path. The air screeched from the heat. Archer exhaled shakily. "They're not aiming to kill us." "I know. They're aiming past us." Diplomat. Ghost's pulse hammered. Hunters did not miss unless they chose to. They were not trying to eliminate Ghost and Archer. They were clearing a straight line toward the Diplomat's extraction corridor. Ghost looked at Archer, knowing already what needed to be done. It wasn't heroism. It wasn't sacrifice. It was simply the only logical path left, something their training had ingrained into them long before this mission. "We draw them," Ghost said. Archer's lips parted, as though he wanted to protest, but his eyes betrayed understanding. "We draw all of them." Ghost nodded. "Far enough from the corridor." Archer's hand steadied completely. "Then let's give them something worth chasing." They burst from cover, firing simultaneously. The shots didn't damage the hunters, but they did something more important. They captured their attention. The nearest machine swiveled, its scanners locking onto the two tiny life signatures, sprinting through blistered smoke. Then the others joined, shifting formation, focusing every sensor, every weapon, every calculation on Ghost and Archer. The plateau lit up with searing beams as the hunters gave chase. Ghost ran harder than he ever had, hearing the machines tearing through rock behind him like thunder with metallic claws. Archer stayed close, firing bursts to keep the hunters tracking their route. Every step felt like the world narrowing into a tunnel of heat and noise. But slowly, very slowly, the line of fire began to shift away from the Diplomat's escape path. Ghost allowed himself one breath of hope. Then Archer stumbled. A hunter's beam struck the ground inches from him, the shockwave launching him off his feet. Ghost skidded to a halt. Archer pushed up on one elbow, coughing, but his leg twisted unnaturally beneath him. Archer's voice cracked. "Go." Ghost shook his head violently. "No. You have to. If you stop, they realign." But Ghost didn't move. His entire body felt like stone, torn between duty and the man who had fought beside him for half his life. "Ghost," Archer whispered hoarsely, "if you stay, the Diplomat dies." Ghost's heart clenched, but somewhere beyond the mist, he heard the faint roar of an engine, the extraction craft rising. And he understood. Archer reached for his weapon again, steadying it with trembling hands. "I'll keep them on me. Just run." Ghost swallowed the pain, nodded once, and sprinted into the storm, every step echoing a silent promise that he would return. Behind him, Archer fired again, one last defiant blaze against the hunters descending upon him like metallic reapers. Ghost didn't look back, but he felt it all the same. The storm, the sacrifice, the turning point of a war decided by two shadows running through fire.